Diesels are bad. They're noisy, they're dirty, they're smelly, they won't meet emission norms, and even if they do meet emission norms, they will never be good value for money. The detractors of diesel have had an absolute field day. The propaganda by you-know-who has been off the charts. Except in India, diesels are still relevant. Even though we have turbo petrols, and I love turbo petrols, but a turbo diesel delivers that blend of performance and efficiency that you do not get in petrols. Plus, they have lower running costs. Plus, on the highway, they're easier with all that torque on tap. And that's why in this test, we've got diesels. We've got the new Mahindra 3XO, and this is taking on not only the best-selling compact SUV, but the best-selling SUV in the country, the Tata Nexon. Does the 3XO have the chops to beat the Nexon? Well, before we go ahead, I know you guys in Delhi are going to skip this video because this is a diesel test and you don't buy diesels. I wouldn't buy a diesel if my diesel registration lasted only for 10 years. So before you go to some other video on the Evo channel, do let us know what do you think about the styling. Do you like the styling of the Mahindra 3XO? Does it look better than the Nexon? What do you think? Let us know in the comments. And while you're at it, don't forget to hit that bell icon to stay notified for all our video drops. And of course, stay subscribed to the Evo India channel. Done? Ready? Now let's get going. Now, I did say at the Mahindra 3XO's launch that this is polarizing and that the styling it would take some time to get used to. It's now been, what, a week that the 3XO has been with us, and I still haven't gotten used to it. But you have to admire the amount of effort that Mahindra has put into the styling of this. It's got this little diamond patterns out here. There's just a lot going on. And also you have to admire the bravery of putting something that looks like this into production. You will definitely not miss this for anything in the world. This will definitely turn heads. This will definitely draw comments. Maybe not of the entirely positive kind, but comments it will surely draw. And also a good thing for Mahindra is that no test, at least at Evo India, has been won or lost purely on the basis of styling. But if it had to be won on the basis of styling, just check out the Tata Nexon. This is a significant facelift. It came out a couple of months ago and it looks so proportionate, so elegant. There is nothing that you can really criticize on the Nexon. Everything is so well executed. Gets 2 thumbs up from me. The body structure of the 3XO remains the same as the 300. So it has the same 2600 mm wheelbase, which is the longest in the class, and we will talk about that in a bit. But then to squeeze the SUV in under 4 meters, they've had to abruptly chop the rear end. This was the same with the 300, and this area, this angle is not the finest on the 3XO. Now, the 3XO gets this additional black plastic cladding, which gives it that chunky SUV feel, but it's something that Pajeros in the past used to do. 17-inch wheels, which is the biggest in this class. That's very nice. But what's this notch here in the cladding? My design sensibilities aren't that evolved to appreciate that. Whereas the Nexon, well, it doesn't require much thinking to appreciate its lines. The black roof flows really well. Okay, this rear wheel arch gap is probably a bit too much, but overall the proportions are very nice and your brain doesn't need to do 2 somersaults to appreciate its design. Over at the rear, the Nexon with this full width tail lamp also looks very nice, but it's on the rear that the 3XO definitely makes amends. It also has this full width tail lamp, but it ends in this C-section, which actually looks very cool. In fact, I think that the rear end of the 3XO is the nicest. But does it affect the overall ranking of styling? Which one do you prefer, the 3XO or the Nexon? Fire away in the comments. The interiors are where the 3XO is very nice. So the headline is this new infotainment screen, 10.2 inches, which actually has been stuck on to the top of the earlier 300's dash, but the integration has been executed very well. This does not look like an afterthought. You get tons of gloss black, which is going to be an absolute fingerprint magnet. You get another 10.2-inch screen, which is your digital cluster, and that has the same graphics as the XUV 700. In fact, for all intents and purposes, that could have been just picked from the 700 and put here. And that's Mahindra's whole thought process with the 3XO. Suppose you want a 700, but A, you can't afford it, and that's, I think, the biggest problem for most people. Or B, you don't want something that's as big. They're saying that they will pack in all those 700 features into the 3XO. So you get a really good sound system by Harman Kardon, though the way this sticker has been put on, it's already peeling off, and that looks like an afterthought. Some more attention to detail should have been done there. And it gets level 2 ADAS. Now, the level 2 ADAS again has been taken straight from the 700. Even the ESP system, Bosch 9.3 with improved BLDC motor, is taken straight from the 700, which raises the bar in this segment and is standard across all variants. So in the petrols, the safety systems, especially the ADAS, is something that Mahindra is making a very big deal out of it. R. Velusamy, Mahindra's president of automotive technology, says that that is a game changer in this class. And if you are obsessed about safety, as you well should be, then the 3XO, especially this top-of-the-line version with ADAS, should be your pick. Otherwise, all versions of the 3XO also get rear disc brakes as standard. Also, it gets ESP as standard. So, safety equipment on the 3XO is top-notch. Otherwise, keeping that aside, both the 3XO and the Nexon have got very good body structures. Both have scored 5 stars in the crash test rating. So both are very safe cars. And really, you have to applaud our Indian manufacturers for making very, very safe cars, irrespective of the segment or irrespective of the price point that they operate at. I must also talk about the quality. Now, the material on the top of the dash, this double stitching, the way it flows into the doors, all is very premium and very high quality. But this white leatherette interior, I think that's a bit too much. It looks very nice. It gives a sense of spaciousness to the cabin, but this is going to get filthy in our Indian environment. Have you seen the dust and the dirt outside? And if you're wearing blue jeans, it's the reason why I'm not wearing blue jeans today, is you will soil the seats. Blue jeans soil white leatherette. So this is not a good idea. What is a good idea is this panoramic sunroof. First in class. Imagine on a compact SUV, you're getting a panoramic sunroof. That's crazy. You get a wireless charger which is cooled so your phone won't get heated up. But if you really want to juice up your phone quickly, you have a 65-watt USB-C charger, which is a high power charger. In fact, you can connect your laptop to that and continue working in the 3XO. In fact, the only thing missing on the 3XO are ventilated seats, which the Nexon gets. So let's go check that out. While the 3XO's cabin is an update on the 300, the Nexon, when it got the facelift, this cabin is actually all new and completely different from the earlier Nexon, except for the center section with this wireless charger out here, a small wireless charger next to the handbrake. Now, you get this new touchscreen, 10.25 inches, which is placed sort of like an iPad on top of the dash. You get the new digital cluster. The graphics, I'm not really a fan of. I don't like it so much. It's just too tiny, the numbers. But actually, the connectivity and the options on it is very good. In fact, your maps from the phone can also be projected onto the digital cluster, which is a very good thing. You get this new steering wheel with the Tata illuminated logo. You get the new climate control panel, lots of gloss black all over the place. And the Nexon as well as the XUV 3XO are going to be a nightmare to keep clear of the fingerprints. You get this new gear lever inspired by Land Rover and Range Rover, of course. Also the different driving modes, City, Eco and Sport. This changes the mapping of the gearbox. This one is the AMT gearbox. Even the diesel XUV gets the AMT gearbox. Don't get proper torque converters because then the pricing will go out of whack. So which wins this comparison test? Honestly, in terms of features, the way it is put together, the design, both are on par. The 3XO scores for the fact that it gets ADAS and a panoramic sunroof. So if the sunroof is a really big deal clincher for you, the 3XO clearly wins this test. Otherwise, the Nexon scores with very nice seats, so you can do long distances comfortably in this. You can option ventilation in the seats and you get a regular size sunroof if you do option it. Now I've got the driver's seat adjusted to my driving position and I have between 3 to 4 inches of free knee room. So this is clearly spacious. I can also tuck in my toes under the seat. There is enough headroom and there is also good shoulder room. In fact, Velu says that because of the longer wheelbase, the occupant space and the couple distance in the 3XO is better than the Nexon. That's theory. Let's go check out the Nexon and see which one has got the most space at the rear. The back seat of the Nexon, and I have 2 to 3 inches of free knee room. So the 3XO has maybe half to maximum an inch more knee room than the Nexon. Is it a deal breaker? I really don't think so. The seats of the Nexon are very comfortable. You can stick your toes in under the front seats. You get good headroom. Maybe not as much as the 3XO because of this slightly coupe roofline, but overall this is also extremely comfortable. Mahindra also claimed that the 3XO is the widest in this class. In fact, Velu slides also had numbers. 1308 mm is the hip room in the back of the 3XO. Let's see how it compares with the Nexon. The center seat of this Nexon is slightly higher than the 3XO. The transmission tunnel is also bigger, and in terms of the width, the 3XO is better. 1222 mm, as those slides said about the Nexon, compared to 1308 mm for the 3XO. And 3 abreast in the Nexon isn't as comfortable as the 3XO. So spaciousness, the 3XO scores. While the diesels are more or less on par in terms of performance, on the petrol engine stakes, the 3XO is clearly ahead. It gets the direct injection turbo petrol engine that makes 128 bhp and 230 Newton meters of torque, 250 Newton meters with overboost. And that is significantly up on the Nexon's 118 bhp and just 170 Newton meters of torque. The 3XO also gets the new 6-speed ACE-in torque converter automatic, whereas the Nexon gets the option of a DCT transmission. But honestly, in terms of performance, the 3XO is clearly ahead. But if you don't want all that performance, the 3XO also gets the lower spec turbo petrol with 109 bhp and slightly better fuel efficiency.
If you are interested in how the petrol 3XO compares with the petrol Nexon, we have that comparison test also coming up. So stay subscribed to the Evo India channel and hit that bell icon to get notified for that video drop.
The XUV 300 was solid. The suspension was so robust that you could really drive it hard over poor roads. Over bad roads, the way the XUV went, nothing else, not even the Nexon went as well. And now, with the changes to the suspension on the 3XO, it has become a little robuster. The suspension setup is the same. McPherson struts up front and a torsion beam at the rear. And Velu points out that the span width of the XUV's torsion beam is 1108 mm compared to the Nexon's 980 mm. And you get MTV CL dampers. Now, these dampers are similar to what the XUV 700 has, and these are progressive dampers. So as you build up speed, you get more planted road manners, whereas at lower speed, you get better ride comfort. Velu also talks a lot about how the body roll has been minimized. Look at this lovely graph of the piston velocity at 60 km per hour versus the road undulations. It looks really impressive. But that's all theory. In reality, on the road, in Indian conditions, on Indian roads, the ride quality is brilliant. Like really, really good. When you have a traffic jam, you can put 2 wheels on the dirt and just go through over bumpy roads, potholes, speed breakers. The way this takes all of that is extremely impressive. And I have to point out that the Nexon is actually very good. In fact, the Nexon was class benchmarks, and the 3XO, it just takes it up a notch. The more you drive it, the more you realize that the 3XO, it rides and handles like a more premium SUV. In fact, in that whole lengthy presentation, a lot of hints were made at SUVs in a class above, the mid-size SUV class. They talked about the class leader, which is obviously the Creta. And to drive, well, the 3XO, it can compete with the Creta. The Nexon, it has it beat. Not by a huge margin, but to drive, anybody sitting behind the wheel, you drive the 3XO and you will come away hugely impressed. And then you hit a set of corners and the way this thing goes around corners. So I'm chucking this like hard into the corners, and there is no tire squeal. There's so much of grip. It resists understeer so well. I've not driven a compact SUV that's this good to drive. No Venue, no Sonnet, no Nexon, no Brezza. Nothing handles like the 3XO does. So that whole lecture that we got, all those presentation slides, I must say that Mahindra's engineering team have done a really, really good job of making the 3XO excellent to drive. And this has still got a torsion beam. This does not have the file-wing suspension like the XUV 700 has. But this is very nice. Very, very nice. If you enjoy driving, this should be your pick. Straight up. Like the 300, this also has the different weighting for the steering. So you have sport mode, you have comfort, you have normal. In sport, it does get a little heavier, but the feel doesn't increase. So I just leave it in normal, and that's good to go. You will get used to the weight of the steering very quickly, so that's not a problem. What you will keep getting irritated about is the bings and bongs. It is just too loud. Now I know that by law you have to have that buzzer at 80 and at 120, but it doesn't have to be that loud. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's talk about the diesel engine. Now, there's no mistaking the fact that this is the diesel engine. You can hear it. All the talk about the noise insulation, the quietness was in reference to the turbo petrol engine, but this diesel engine is not bad at all. Really, in terms of NVH, no problem. Both Tata, Mahindra, they make really good diesel engines. Powerful diesel engines as well. So you get 115 bhp, 320 Newton meters of torque. That is better than the turbo petrol, and it just makes for easy cruising. I'm going up this set of twisties, I'm out in 4th gear, I'm pulling 2000 RPM, and it chugs along easily. You can actually stick it in 6th gear. At 6th gear, at 80 kilometers per hour, you are just under 2000 RPM. Brong. And once you get to 2000 RPM, the turbo spools up proper and you get a nice shove of torque. You also do get a bit of turbo lag, but because the bottom end is so strong, you just get a nice surge of power once the turbo starts singing. Below that, you still have grunt. This is a really nice engine. Mahindra, like I said, they know their diesel technology in and out. They've really mastered it. I'm doing 100 kilometers an hour, I'm in 6th gear, I'm doing exactly 2000 RPM, and I can hear more of the wind roar around the wing mirrors than the engine itself. Now with this engine, you get the option of an AMT transmission, not a regular torque converter, and the 6-speed manual. Now the 6-speed manual, it's not the slickest gearbox if I'm being perfectly honest. It shifts well, but it just takes a little more effort than what you would expect of a modern manual gearbox. The clutch also, it's not heavy, but I'm not really enjoying the gear shifting experience. In a Swift, you enjoy rowing through the gears. Here, I'm not so chuffed about it. And then the footwell is so narrow, I don't have space to rest my left foot. There is no dead pedal. The steering, it only adjusts for rake. It doesn't adjust for reach, so it only goes up and down, doesn't come towards me. The seats, they are a bit too small. I'm not overtly on the wider side. I'm in reasonably good shape. These seats don't feel too comfortable, and over a longer run, I don't think it'll be all that comfortable. Whereas the Nexon, now that has some really good seats. Not that you will take it off-roading, but Mahindra made it a point to highlight the 23.6 degree approach angle, 39.6 degree departure angle, 350 mm water weighting, and 17-inch wheels. But what they didn't mention was that the 201 mm ground clearance, up from 180 mm on the 300, is still no match for the Nexon's 208 mm ground clearance. Now, 7mm is not going to make any difference to your lives, but we have to do our research and we have to present the facts to you, and that's what we have done. Mahindra, they also say that the driving position, the seating height and the visibility is as good as the 700 and is the best in class. The eye level is 1398 mm above the ground, which is supposed to be really good. But is it better than the Nexon? Let's find out. So is the 3XO's driving position better than the Nexon? Well, it's got height adjustable seats, so you can take the seats up if you want, or like I prefer, I go nice and low, get the seat a little bit further towards the steering wheel, and this is also a very good driving position. In fact, I think the more apt comparison are the seats, and the Nexon seats are better, more comfortable and more supportive and wider than the 3XO seats. So that is the more important comparison, and the Nexon wins on that front. Now, in terms of driving, we've always praised the Nexon for its ride and handling. In fact, Tata Motors, they do not make an uncomfortable car. They really have cracked it in terms of ride comfort, and the Nexon is no different. It's just that the 3XO has moved the game on in this compact SUV segment. So the ride is good on the Nexon, but not as good as the 3XOs. Same goes with the handling. The Nexon's handling is also good, but not as good as the 3XOs. The 3XO has that layer of sophistication that really wins it for me in this segment, as a driver of the 3XO does things slightly better than the Nexon. Now, I want to make a point here about diesel cars. Shubham, the owner of this Nexon, who's very kindly loaned it to us for this comparison test, he said that he bought the diesel not just because of the running cost benefits. Obviously, that would have been there at the back of his mind, but he says that he picked the diesel because of its performance. Now, the diesel engine in the Nexon, that puts out 113 bhp. That is 2 bhp less than the 3XO. But coming back to what I was saying about petrol versus diesel, the petrol in the Nexon, that makes 118 bhp. So 113 bhp in the diesel, 118 bhp in the petrol. So that's not too different. Plus, the diesel gets more torque, 260 Newton meters versus 170 Newton meters on the turbo petrol. So in terms of performance, you're almost there. You get damn good fuel efficiency with this diesel engine. On the highway, you get over 20 kilometers to the liter. No turbo petrol will ever give you that kind of efficiency. It is a refined engine. Not as refined as the 3XO's diesel, I must point out, but for most intents and purposes, this is a refined engine. The bings and bongs on the Nexon are much better than the 3XO. This is not deafening like it is on the 3XO. Now, the one that I'm driving has got the AMT gearbox. Even the 3XO diesel, that has the option of an AMT. Both don't get proper torque converters on the diesel because that would throw the price equation out of whack. In terms of the shifts, I've never been a fan of AMT transmissions, and this is no different. You still get that head toss, you floor it and there's a delay. It's a compromise. Now, if you have to have an automatic, well, this is the only automatic that you get. At least you get paddle shifters on the Nexon, so you get some sort of manual control. But if Lamborghini couldn't make the AMT work well on an Aventador, well, Tata and Mahindra are doing their best, I must tell you that. Once you get used to it, it's fine. But this does sap a bit of performance, not at the expense of efficiency though. So overall, to drive, the Nexon remains very good. The Nexon remains one of our picks in this segment. It's just that the 3XO has caught up to it and nudged ahead. You will point out that there is no sunroof in this version. Yes, there is no sunroof in this version. This is the fearless something. And honestly, with this whole persona business of Tata Motors, I can't make out what is what. The thing that every manufacturer should follow is LXI, VXI and ZXI, and that is it. So that's the head toss that you get with these AMTs, which there's no getting away from. The engine is also noisier and you feel that gruffness. But like Mahindra, Tata Motors also knows their diesel power plants. And this diesel engine is very strong. In fact, for the longest time in Tata Motors range, before they had their turbo petrols, if you wanted performance, you stuck with the diesel, not the petrol. Petrols were dus. At the end of the day, pricing plays a key role, especially in such a price-sensitive segment like the compact SUVs. Now, the Nexon has got these Hajar personas. The 3XO has got even more variants. So to make sense of it, here's a massive table that hopefully makes sense of it.
Let's start with the base variants. The diesel 3XO starts with the MX2 variant priced at 9.99 lakh rupees. This variant is only available with a manual transmission. The entry point to the Nexon diesel is the Pure at 11.1 lakhs for the manual, which is a significant step up. The main features difference is that the Nexon gets a 4-inch digital cluster to the 3XO's analog dials, but the 3XO gets a 10.25-inch infotainment screen across all variants, while the Nexon starts with a 7-inch unit. Point to note is that the base Nexon Pure also gets the AMT for an additional 70,000 rupees. Next, let us look at the sunroof variants, because despite the 40 degrees heat, we Indians are obsessed with the sunroof. In the Nexon, the sunroof is denoted by the S suffix and costs an additional rupees 50,000 in pure and creative trims and 40,000 in fearless trim. In the 3XO diesel, the sunroof starts at 10.39 lakh rupees on the MX2 Pro. This is for the manual. You do not get an option of an AMT here. For the diesel AMT on the 3XO, you need to go to the MX3 variant, which is 11.69 lakh rupees. The MX3 manual is 80,000 rupees cheaper. The creative spec of the Nexon sort of matches the MX3, which is 13.1 lakh rupees for the AMT and 12.5 lakh rupees on the manual. Point to note is that you get more features on the Nexon, like alloy wheels, TPMS, push button start and digital cluster. But the 3XO gets wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto from this variant itself. The main features differences are in this chart. Do you want a 360-degree camera? On the Nexon, you get it with the Creative Plus variant, which includes the blind view camera. From this variant onwards, you get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto on the Nexon. Point to note is that the full width tail lamps only start with the MX3 Pro variant of the 3XO, while it is standard across all variants of the Nexon. And for the 360 camera, you have to go all the way to the AX7L variant on the 3XO. If you want alloy wheels on the 3XO, you need to upgrade to the AX5 variant. But these are 16-inch alloys, 17s come on the AX7. On this variant, you get the Adrenox connected car features, TPMS and the analog dials are swapped for the 10.25-inch digital cluster. The equivalent Nexon Fearless variant gets an air purifier, which none of the 3XO variants get. But you do need to go up to the Fearless Plus S for the connected car features. On the 3XO AX7 variant, you get first-in-class features like the panoramic sunroof as well as 17-inch alloys and 65-watt USB-C charging. The Harman Kardon branded sound system with an amplifier and subwoofer starts with the AX7 variant, which also gets leatherette seats. And finally, we have the 3XO's AX7L variant, which gets the segment first level 2 ADAS along with the electric parking brake. This costs rupees 14.99 lakhs for the manual, and surprisingly, there is no automatic version of the AX7L. However, you do miss out on ventilated seats in the 3XO, which the Nexon does get. If you want ADAS, you can only get it with the diesel manual 3XO. Surprising? Let us know what you think in the comments.
So net-net, the 3XO undercuts the Nexon in terms of price and also offers more value and features. So if it's value that you're looking for, the 3XO is your pick. If it's ride and handling that you're looking for, again, the 3XO is your pick. If it's performance you're after, the thrill of driving that you're after, again, the 3XO is your pick. But at the end of the day, when you park your car, you gotta turn around and look at it, don't you? And isn't this kinda on the eye?